Welcome guys. Today we will be discussing core training and 2 exercises that may be transitioned through the stability, strength, and power phases. For exercise 1, the supine march will be used for the stability phase, the supine march plus crunch for the strength phase, and the med ball slam for the power phase. Sets, reps, tempo, and rest intervals are provided for each phase. The supine march was used for the stability portion of this exercise. The athlete was instructed to maintain the drawing in maneuver, which took the navel closer towards the spine, while performing bracing that activated the abdominal wall, back musculature, and gluteal musculature. The rectus abdominis was activated through this motion, while slight hip flexion also activated the rectus femoris. Little to no movement was produced at the pelvis and spine. The crunch plus march was used for the strength phase, where the athlete continued and maintained the drawing in maneuver along with that of bracing. The trunk flexed along with the hip, activating the rectus abdominis, rectus femoris, iliopsoas, and in some situations, the sartorius. The overall goal of the strength phase is to improve lumbopelvic hip complex stability, eccentric strength, and neuromuscular efficiency of the core through eccentric and concentric movements of the spine through a full range of motion. The med ball slam came in handy for the power phase of core training. As we can see here, the athlete starts in a triple extension position and later on progresses into a dynamic and more explosive squat to target that anterior core musculature. As stated by McGill and Montel, the strength phase of core training is designed to improve the rate of force production by the actual core, yet an athlete should hold proper intervertebral stability along with adequate lumbopelvic stability to avoid any form of neuromuscular faults and or mechanical faults that may lead to injury. This is the second view of the med ball slam, more so from a lateral view. As we can see, and as mentioned before, the athlete starts in the triple extension position and produces an explosive movement to activate that anterior core musculature. When it comes to core training progressions, McGill and Montel advise 4 weeks of stability training, 4 weeks of strength training, and 2 weeks of power training. Yet, the athlete should be regressed if faults are noticed within any of the phases. All in all, the athlete should hold and maintain adequate stability at the core/lumbopelvic hip complex to optimize their movement mechanics and ensure neuromuscular efficiency. Now that you know a little bit more about the stability, strength, and power phases of core training, a video will be provided to guide and progress you through each of the phases. Through the video, you can see what we previously mentioned. The athlete performs that drawing in and bracing maneuver while activating that rectus abdominis and some form the internal and external oblique. Repetitions should be 1 through 3. Sets should be 12 to 20. The tempo should be slow, 4, 2, 1. And rest should account for 0 to 90 seconds. Notice how the athlete maintains the drawing in and bracing position while flexing the trunk, flexing the hip to activate the rectus abdominis, rectus femoris, psoas, and so on. Sets include 2 to 3, reps 8 to 12, a tempo of medium, and rest of 0 to 60 seconds. Here we can see the athlete starting in that triple extension position and exploding right into the movement, getting good activation of that anterior core. 2 or 3 sets are advised, 8 to 12 reps, and most importantly, an explosive tempo. Rest intervals account for 0 to 60 seconds. For exercise 2, we will use the iso side plank with shoulder abduction for the stability portion, the resisted trunk rotation for strength, and the side oblique throw for power. As mentioned for exercise 1, the chart will include reps, sets, tempo, and rest interval for each phase of core training. The iso side plank with shoulder abduction was used for the stability portion. The athlete was instructed to produce a drawing in maneuver which took the navel closer towards the spine, while bracing, activating the abdominals, gluteal group, and the lower back musculature. An isometric hold was produced from the lower chain to the upper chain. The primary muscles involved include the rectus abdominis and obliques, while the gracilis, adductor longus, pectineus, psoas major, TFL, gluteus medius, serratus anterior, and lateral deltoid helped with the stability portion as well. Resisted trunk rotation was used for the strength portion. The athlete maintained the drawing in maneuver that pushed the navel towards the spine while bracing, activating that anterior core, lower back musculature, and gluteal group. The athlete was instructed to rotate the trunk against resistance, which activated the internal oblique, the external oblique, and the rectus abdominis. The side oblique throw was used for the power phase. The athlete was instructed to maintain a bracing position by activating the anterior core, gluteal group, and lower back musculature. The athlete started with a rotated trunk and then used power to follow through and slam the ball towards the wall. Primary muscles utilized for this exercise include the internal oblique, the external oblique, the rectus abdominis, and hip musculature that allowed for that power movement. As stated for exercise 1, McGill and Montel advised 4 weeks of stability training, 4 weeks of strength training, and 2 weeks of power training, ensuring that the athlete progresses well through each stage to avoid mechanical and neuromuscular faults which can lead to injury. Moving forward, videos will be provided for each phase of core training, that being the iso side plank with shoulder abduction, trunk rotation, and the side oblique throw. The iso side plank with shoulder abduction required an isometric hold leading from the lower to the upper chain. The athlete was instructed to produce a drawing in maneuver while bracing to engage the anterior abdominal wall, lower back musculature, and gluteal musculature. When it comes to training parameters, we advise a 10-second hold for 3 to 6 reps and producing this movement in 1 and 3 sets. Yet, this may vary based on the athlete's experience and proficiency with the stability exercise. It can be altered to a 20-second hold, 30-second hold, and for some, even a minute hold. Rest intervals should account for 0 to 90 seconds. For the strength progression, we used a resisted trunk rotation for our exercise. The athlete was instructed to maintain and produce the drawing in maneuver while bracing to activate the anterior abdominal wall, lower back, and gluteal muscle groups. As we can see through the video, the athlete produces most of the motion through that trunk. Try not to use the shoulder to rotate, but more of that actual hip and spine complex to get that full rotation and activating those internal external obliques and rectus abdominis. The exercise was produced for 8 to 12 reps for 2 to 3 sets with a rest interval of 0 to 60 seconds as we look to optimize lumbopelvic hip stability, eccentric strength, and neuromuscular efficiency at the core. For the power progression, we use the side oblique throw to engage the core, activating that rectus abdominis, internal-external oblique, and hip musculature. As we see, the athlete starts in this position, loads the hip, and explodes. For training parameters, 8 to 12 reps should be produced for 2 to 3 sets. An explosive tempo is advised, and rest intervals of 0 to 60 seconds. Before we let you guys go, just want to give you a few recommendations. Please ensure that your athlete is progressing well through each stage of core training, that being the stability, strength, and power portions, to fully optimize movement mechanics, neuromuscular efficiency, and the prevention of injury. Overall, I want to give a big thanks to NASM for providing us with the needed guidelines, and to you, the viewer, for tuning in.